What is up, people? You are listening in to New Generation Hero Talk. Yes, we are back with an episode of Hero Talk. We got a lot to talk about on today's show, including what to expect from Daredevil Born Again Season 2, which debuts in less than 2 weeks. What former Netflix character could be joining Daredevil or other MCU projects moving forward, and what is the latest with the X-Men. So plenty to do here. Excited to have my guys on. Joining me are my co-hosts. Of course, I'm EJ Stewart. Joining me live are my co-hosts, starting with Shamari Stewart. Sham, it's been a minute. What's happening?
Yeah, it's been a minute, EJ. I know you've been doing your 40 days, 40 nights. You've been holding down the network, holding down the fort, keeping the people informed on what's going on, giving your takes on things. So of course, if you weren't checking that out, please check that out. But yeah, man, glad to be here talking heroes, talking to the movies, TV shows, all that stuff that we usually talk. So I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, man. Kendall Stewart, of course, joins me. Well, Kendall, what's happening?
Nothing much, man. Glad to be back. Like you said, it's been a little minute since we've been on Hero Talk. But glad to be back. We'll have plenty of Marvel stuff to get to, obviously. I feel like the big thing that's been on the Warner Brothers DC front has just been trying to figure out if Netflix is actually going to buy Warner Brothers, or if Paramount can continue to try and strong arm and outbid the Netflix bid so far. Seemed like it was done. Then I guess in the last week or two, it seemed like maybe it's wide open. So, that's very much a tumultuous thing in Hollywood. But right now, Marvel's been the focus for a lot of the stories in the last week or two.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Yeah, it's been very quiet a lot on the DC front. I mean, the loudest we got from the DC front was, is it possible that Man of Tomorrow was not named Man of Tomorrow? Is it just Superman Man of Tomorrow? And James Gunn had to debunk that. And then we had, is James Gunn waiting for the Batman 3 to come out to do Brave and the Bold? And then he had to come out and debunk that. That wasn't true. And apparently the original reporting on that was, I guess, misquoting Daniel RPK, who we talk about a bunch on the show, in terms of what he actually was saying. But nonetheless, there's been a lot of, for DC, kind of debunking, quiet stuff. We're still waiting for a Lanterns trailer. I know a Lanterns title, logo came out, but besides that, still no trailer. So we have definitely been talking a lot about Marvel. Obviously, Wonder Man has definitely taken a lot of the conversation of late after Wonder Man was a highly successful, I think, debut for Marvel a couple of weeks back. And now we're spearheading away towards Daredevil Born Again, and what is going to become a massive year between Spider-Man, Brand New Day. We'll have also X-Men 97 later as well. And then, of course, ending with Avengers Doomsday. So this is a big year for Marvel. It definitely seems that Marvel right now is riding on a little bit of a high. So we'll get into plenty of things happen over with Marvel. But this is exciting to be back. Exciting to be back to do the podcast, do Hero Talk. We do this show typically every week, and probably get back to doing it every week. Jam, now that I'm down towards the end of my 40 days and 40 nights run. If you've been checking out my live stream, I've been doing 2 live streams per day, 40 days and 40 nights. So 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, 8 a.m., 6 p.m. We're 30 days in as of today when we record this podcast. So we got plenty of more to come, but we're definitely coming down to the wire. And as we kind of reset and reboot kind of where New Generation Media is moving forward beyond this, be sure to, again, subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Be sure to, of course, follow us on social media, New Generation Pod on X, New Generation Podcast on Instagram. And, of course, make sure you subscribe to the podcast channel, New Generation Podcast Network, where you can get Hero Talk, 40 Days, 40 Nights, and all the shows we do on New Generation Media. An audio version, you can catch them all on our podcast channel. Wherever you get your podcast, just search New Generation Podcast Network. Okay, let's get the ball rolling, man. Let's talk about Daredevil. So, this is coming up to premiere week. We're not quite there yet, but by next week, we will be at premiere week. But Daredevil comes out on March 4th, and the showrunner is now doing, press and promo for the series. And less than 2 weeks to come before it drops, and we can now know what to expect in terms of how long the Kingpin will be running New York City. So showrunner Dario Scardapane had told SFX magazine that the, quote, Mayor Fisk arc of the series will be coming to an end in season 2, with season 3 featuring a more, what he describes as a Frank Miller inspired story. So of course, Miller's run in the comics, which Frank Miller, the iconic, comic book writer, wrote to Dark Knight Rises, is the foundational, for many people, he wrote the foundational run for Daredevil in the 80s. That included the Hand, included Stick, and included Elektra. Scardapane also says larger MCU crossovers bringing in characters from movies and other shows are in terms of the main shows are currently off the table. He said here, quote, I'd be into it because I did the comics, but no, that's been kind of a fun and challenging thing. We know there's that huge world out there of the MCU. This corner of it has crossovers. We've seen Daredevil and other shows. He adds that there are characters that are going to be popping up in stuff, and that all goes into larger MCU at all. But it says, quote, the joke we make is, oh, those guys are uptown and we're downtown. We kind of have a pocket that's in the world of Hell's Kitchen, in this world of New York. He says, quote, I also think that maybe these characters take little vacations into the larger world, but the story that we're focusing on is really granular. So other things real quickly in this interview, he spoke about how the first season was a, quote, cobbled together Frankenstein, where the original direction of the show was meant to take a more procedural, courtroom-centered series, and then there was a tonal switch that we then saw happen. He says, by landing really strongly at the beginning and end with an idea that, quote, this is what the show wants to be, and this is what the show is, we were able to kick the narrative into the second season relatively unfettered. You'll see in some of these episodes that we were able to let it rip in a way we may not have been able to last season. So I'll bring this to Sham first. When it comes to, let's begin where he started, which was the Mayor Fisk story coming to an end and shifting to a more Frank Miller inspired story coming up. Do you like that is the plan? Do you like that is the direction it seems to be going, where whatever's going to happen with Mayor Fisk kind of ends the season and we go into more of a Frank Miller style for season 3?
I would say I think it is good for this show. Mm-hmm. In that sense, I think it's a good thing. I think the Mayor Fisk thing going on for 3 or more seasons would be a bit much. On the flip side, I also would have liked to see the Mayor Fisk thing affect other parts of the MCU and other characters in the MCU. Spider-Man, we have the Spider-Man movie,
right?
Coming out. So it's supposed to be more, ground level. Seeing him deal with the kind of Mayor Fisk situation, and maybe seeing other heroes deal with this Mayor Fisk situation would have been very fun, to be completely honest. So that's a bit of a bummer, but in terms of just Daredevil alone, I think it's good. I think it'll benefit the show, and taking a turn to, Frank Miller is just an amazing writer. Definitely groundbreaking. Definitely has earned all the accolades that he has, and one of my favorite, comic book writers, if not my favorite comic book writer. Definitely up there for sure. So moving to more of a story that is even inspired by his style, I think is very good. And I'm saying that as someone that likes a lot of the kind of Snyder work, which is also very Frank Miller inspired. A lot of his work is very, very Frank Miller inspired. Clearly he's a massive fan and loves kind of seeing that visual translation into film. So seeing more of that, I am 1,000% on board.
All right, Kendall, how do you feel about the Mayor Fisk story ending here and going towards more Frank Miller stylistic shift for season 3?
Yeah, in terms of the Mayor Fisk side of it, I think it makes sense. I think Shamar makes a good point about, maybe that's a storyline that is probably a bit too contained for, also having, to be existing in a larger universe where you've got this, mega supervillain in the Marvel comics, Kingpin as the mayor of New York City, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to play much of a factor.
Yeah, it doesn't seem impacting anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we're watching Thunderbolts being like, so is this happening before or after Mayor Fisk, right? And it's like, I probably shouldn't be asking that question. I know Marvel doesn't want us to be asking that question, but that's what happens when you make Vincent D'Onofrio's Wilson Fisk and Kingpin the mayor of New York in a more MCU that has had a lot of New York central stuff in their movie stuff. So yeah, I mean that's sort of an elephant in the room that they've had to been dealing with. So this kind of confirms that it's not something they want to continue to deal with probably much longer. I think in terms of ending it now, I guess it makes sense. The question that I have, I don't know if I would have. I guess I would have assumed it would have ended anyway. Sometimes I wish they don't tell us like, yeah, he's not gonna be mayor by the end of the season. Like,
yeah.
I mean, well, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I probably don't love about the comments in general. But yeah, I mean, I guess again, like you said, we'll see where we go with a more Frank Miller inspired, what that means specifically for next season. But in terms of them not like crossing over too much with the larger MCU, to me that statement sounded a lot like the translation, like a sports analogy would be like, yeah, the minor leaguers could get called up to the major leagues, but there's no major leaguers going back down to the minors, right?
Yeah.
There's no WWE superstars going down to NXT, appearing on NXT, and that's, I'm fine with it if they fulfill the wish that people have had, which is again bringing those Netflix adjacent characters to the big screen, right? We saw Spider-Man, No Way Home already bringing Daredevil. We're seeing Brand New Day include Punisher. So it's not as clearly that embargo is sort of lifted to begin with. Ultimately, I think that's, the idea of trying to bring some of these characters that are, in the Netflix world, what was the Netflix world, that's now the Disney Plus world. That's something that the fans have wanted for a long time. And so they have to be able to preserve that at the very least, is say, because if you just say that those are two separate worlds, well, then what's the difference from what we had during the Netflix era? And that was kind of something, the one thing people didn't like about the Netflix shows was that they were too distant and they did the goofy, the big green guy, but they couldn't say Hulk. And we didn't ever see any real tie-in to the MCU. With the idea of them all being under the same umbrella, I think people wanted to see some crossover every now and then. I understand not wanting to bring, even though we've had a lot of movie characters on Disney Plus, I understand not wanting to put Tom Holland on Daredevil Born Again season 2, but like, at the very least, again, we should start to see some of these things that play out on Disney Plus, have some tie-in to the movies and vice versa. So I understand it, but I do hope that there's a little bit more cohesion than there was in the past.
Yeah, I think on that point, in the Fisk thing and the MCU thing, they're very connected because the Mayor Fisk thing and the idea behind it, which has been executed very well. It's so curious to hear him talk about season 1 because I really like season 1. And I don't think that they're saying that it's bad, but I think they probably behind the scenes. And we've heard the comments, the stories about how this was a mess and everything. It sounds like they put together something that ended up being really good, but maybe to get to it, it was basically hell. But I like a lot of the season. And I like the stuff that even was being done prior to the initial shift. It seems like those stories that were kind of seemed to be linked to whatever was happening with the first iteration of the show. But I think what makes the idea of Mayor Fisk interesting is because New York City is so centric to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because there's so many events that have happened there. There is a major hero that lives there. So the fact that they've kind of removed, I guess, kind of like what the impact is of having someone running New York City who is a super criminal or a super villain, and not having like the actual like ramifications of that be felt beyond just whatever's happening in the world of Daredevil, feels like a little bit of a lost opportunity to me. But also there's an idea, like I don't know if it's just lip service because no one's ever able to quite figure out what the contractual thing is. But D'Onofrio keeps mentioning there's a contractual thing that makes this thing hard for him to be involved with other stories and other characters. The only thing I can think of is maybe whatever deal they made with Fox for Daredevil meant that he had to be contained to Daredevil. I don't know. I can't think of what else.
I was thinking maybe
we've seen Daredevil in Spider-Man, so I don't know what the problem would be potentially for him being in something else. I can't figure it out.
My theory, it's stupid, but my theory is something along the lines of it's a Sony. Kingpin's a weird character, right? Because he's a Sony, I guess, animated, owned character. But live action was owned by Fox.
Yeah, that's true.
But then the TV stuff is owned by Marvel. So I wonder if it's like I can't be in a Spider-Man movie in live action, without someone else signing off on it, or I can, but Sony maybe owns it, and Sony you feel like all the people, like Fox is out of the picture, right? So you feel like all the people would have ownership of Kingpin,
right? And at the end of the day, and I'm not thinking about it now because all these deals are crazy. Marvel owns Fox, or at least owns that stuff, so you would think that we got it. So so you're right. It's probably more of a Sony thing. That makes a lot more sense. Again, he's been in a Sony animated movie for Spider-Man, but is it an animated thing?
They brought Marvel characters onto the Sony movies. It might just be we have to sign off on it somehow, or there might be an exchange that happens. Yeah, we're gonna let you use Iron Man, we're gonna let you use Doctor Strange, but like this, the second we gotta let you use Kingpin, like that might have to give you you gotta pay us for it or something. Like who knows? I don't know how those deals happen.
Yeah,
might have some central character in the Spider-Man games as well, Kingpin. So
yes.
So clearly there's something with that character. So I think you're on to something.
Yeah, because that feels like the missed opportunity for me. Which if that is the case, if like you're not able to have him cross over with Spider-Man and the larger MCU, then the Mayor Fisk thing should end soon. Like, it shouldn't be something that is a 4 or 5 season arc. If this is not something that we can actually see play out in any movie, that's going to be something that's going to be impactful. So I'm also fine with it. I think to Kendall's point, I do agree the spoileriness of it is a little weird. Like, it's like naturally going to end. It's like, well, we didn't know that until you just said that. So thanks, I guess. But I mean, I do think that this is a show that I feel like, I know he says in these comments that we're kind of coming into this unfiltered or unfettered or whatever. I think season 3 is when this show, in terms of whatever the vision that Dario wants it to have, I feel like that's when it's going to begin. It's really season 3. I think season 2, I think, is them having to clean up some of the messes of season 1 with characters they would have never introduced, like the girlfriend character that is one of my least favorite characters ever introduced in anything Marvel's ever done. Who's like the psychiatrist, like her, again, the idea of Mayor Fisk, who knows, is something that they would have actually even done. So that is, again, I think a lot of this is going to be them being able to kind of clean up that aspect of it and move forward beyond that. So that part I get. Again, it's funny that I'm hearing them talk about how like season 1 was. I really like season 1. So again, it's hard for me to really like look at that as a critique. And they say, well, now we come in, guns blazing. I think what I will say is my favorite episodes of the season were the last 2 episodes, and I did like the beginning of the first episode. So if that is more of what we're getting, then great. When he says that we're going to kind of come in, you're going to see us push the envelope in ways that we haven't or we weren't able to. Do you guys also assume that to be action? 'Cause that's kind of what I assume.
Yeah, that's what I got out of that as well. Mm-hmm. Is that they're gonna do a lot more in terms of action specifically. Because that is kind of the thing that I feel like one of the things that was just kind of lacking in comparison to other Daredevil seasons in particular is the amount of action that was in this new series. So
yeah.
I honestly think that was a direct reference to them.
Because I remember watching season 1 prior to watching this past season, like season 1 of the Netflix show. And I forgot how much of it is just Daredevil just boxing dudes. Like, there are just like a lot of the season is just like, him just in a fight with an alley with some guy. Like that's a large part of the season and there is action moments in the first, in episodes, I guess 2 through what you're looking for, probably 7 or 8. but it definitely is not like the first season where it's like it's just he just graps. It's just a season of graps.
Clearly, that was a large pitch of the show. Clearly, was like watch Daredevil fight a lot of guys. Like every episode seemed like it was centered around a major action sequence. Whereas, like you said, this show, like the initial pitch was clearly this is gonna be more of a Law and Order type show. And like, we may occasionally have a fight every now and then, but there can be plenty of episodes where Daredevil doesn't put on the costume, and that just wasn't going to happen in the original show. And like you said, I liked for the most part what they kind of came out with in the first version of Daredevil Born Again. The stuff that we can clearly tell is a little different, but I think they realized for long term what people were asking for. They wanted more of what the original show was. It's how we got the Frankenstein monster as you described it that season 1 was, but like you said, they didn't necessarily pour out a bad product. There was some stuff people didn't like as much. I think the Muse stuff could have been a little cleaner in how it was handled, but
yeah, I think they cut out. I think they cut out a lot from that.
Yeah, I think they cut a lot of that story. But ultimately, like if that's the worst Daredevil Born Again is ever going to be, then seasons 2 and 3, where we might be in for a treat.
I know. And like, I go back to like, at the end of the day, you hope that this kind of still, once again, represents a tonal shift for Marvel, just in terms of like not being so hell-bent on like thinking that they'll have all the answers and all the ideas. Because again, what they presented and what they seemed like they were going down the path towards wasn't the worst thing in the world. Again, I liked a lot of aspects of it. But why did you feel like you had to shift the show to not be what the Netflix show was? Like, why couldn't it just be what it was before? What was before was one of the greatest live action things we've ever seen in superhero content, movies and television included. Why do you feel the need to shift to that? And that speaks to, again, where I do feel like it's been like a disconnect when it comes to Kevin Feige and his own fans and sort of what his fans want. Like, sometimes Kevin Feige strikes me like a Vince McMahon type, where Vince McMahon was known to be like a guy who saw the WWE as not a wrestling business, an entertainment business. And he always liked to think outside the box when it came to just think of WWE as just wrestling. And there are times where like fans being a certain way or pushing a certain guy or pushing a certain storyline actually would legitimately piss him off to the point where he would sometimes do things in spite of the fans and do it under the guise of, well, this is entertainment. But like, sometimes you miss the forest through the trees, being like, okay, yes, but like if your fans are telling you to do one thing, like you should just do this thing. Or your fans tell you not to do one thing, you should just not do that thing instead of trying to, shove a square peg into a round hole. And Vince, I think at his worst, that was always, to me, at his worst when he was in his creative process. And sometimes Feige strikes me like, I wonder if he does some of these things out of spite. Like, why wouldn't you just make Daredevil what it was? Like, why are you trying to do something different and trying to say, it's like you're trying to say I can do a better version of what we had, which if that's the case, then just don't cast Charlie Cox. Don't cast Vincent D'Onofrio. Like you already tried to recast all these other characters that we cared about, like Vanessa and these people. Like, to me, just do your own thing as opposed to trying to like, it's like you're teasing the fans by saying, oh, like I am getting the people you wanted, but it's going to be like what I want. So like, well, that's why you get the She-Hulk episode you had for Daredevil. These little things that like end up being like, well, that's not quite what I remember Charlie Cox being like, or that's not quite like how I imagine Daredevil. And again, I also like the She-Hulk episode that include Daredevil, but sometimes like that instinct that he has is like, oh, you guys want this thing? All right, I'm going to do something that's very different. Sometimes it feels like just because, and that part of it is still annoying to me.
I think another thing that we've heard Feige say, and I think I take it whenever when he said that, I took it very literally going forward. I think it was in reference to Spider-Man where he said, I don't want to do anything that's been done before, right? And so when he, every time now we see the Spider-Man stuff, it's very different than the other versions. I think Fantastic Four showed that as well. And so it doesn't surprise me that Daredevil is the same way.
Yeah. Which brings me to the Spider-Man thing, because now they are trying to do things the same as before. Because now Spider-Man reportedly may have webbing that comes out of his hands now. Like that may be a thing that's coming up. And I know there's a storyline. I mentioned it on 40 Days and 40 Nights a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week. And that now they may be doing a Man Spider thing, which I'm not at all excited about that. Man Spider. I actually went and watched the Spider-Man animated series because I was like, do I remember that being as awful as I remember it? And that's the Morbius saga, which I was like, because everybody hates the Morbius saga. And I didn't realize that was the actual. I was like, oh my God, this is the more. I'm watching this joint, man. And I'm like, yo, like, shout out to Punisher. Now it makes sense why Punisher's in this movie. Because I'm like, oh, y'all definitely got inspired by this arc. Y'all got inspired by the worst arc on the show, arguably.
It might make sense why Jean Grey might be in it, right? If
right, because the X-Men are right along with that. Exactly. All of this made a lot of sense. I was like, oh, everything happening with this movie makes a ton of sense. It's just, so this is the inspiration you took of all the Spider-Man animated cartoon arcs you could have done. This is the one I hate the most. Like, the X-Men were great, and Punisher was great. And that was pretty much it about it. Like, all we need is Jared Leto to show up as Morbius, and then we got the whole bag there. And Mahershala Ali to show up as Blade, and now we got the whole story down pat. Like, you might as well just say, let's go. So that's the only thing about Feige sometimes. I just feel like you're right, Kendall, that he a big onus of what he has done has been, I want to do something different than what has been done in the past. But there's also an aspect of it, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And my thing is, if you want to do something not done in the past, again, then do Daredevil and don't bring in Charlie Cox, don't bring in Vincent D'Onofrio. But you know you can't, because you'd be dead on arrival if you tried. So don't give me also this like half and half. Like, okay, well, in order for me to do my vision, I have to piggyback on someone else's vision that had success. So therefore I have to recast, bring back that other cast. But I'm still going to do things, a little small things that I think will be able to slide under the rug and nobody will complain. But then he recasts Vanessa and people go crazy. And then we hear the word about that, that Karen and Nelson aren't in at all. Kendall dropped out. Hopefully we get back soon. That they're not in the entire, show, and people freak out. Okay, I got to bring back, Karen Page and Foggy Nelson. Like, again, he tried to do his own thing, and then it ended up blowing up in his face, and then he had to adjust. So there's that aspect of it that is frustrating for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying the same thing, quite frankly, for like, at this point, probably years, I guess, with all the kind of craziness from Feige. But yeah, he has a propensity to do that, from the Ralph Boner thing.
Yep.
Where, he takes his character in Quicksilver and his version of Quicksilver that people particularly loved and thought was very good and would love if his character came back, and made him a joke, for some reason. And then, there's just, the list goes on when it comes to the things that, there's a whole thing with the X-Men, which, we're finally getting X-Men now, but, it's been, I believe, when we, because I remember we traced our podcast, it's been, I don't even know how many, 5, 6, 7 years, however long it's been since they have officially owned the X-Men. And now we're, hearing, and we'll talk about it too, that they're maybe going to start filming this year for the X-Men, when they should have done that when they got the X-Men. So yeah, this is someone that has, it's very, I don't know, something with his vision where he's just like, I need to complete my vision. And that is what fans will want and what will make money. And it's like, you need to balance that. Like, yes, we want things that are different, but when you get the X-Men, you give the fans the X-Men. You don't make them wait for you to finish your whatever. Yes. You don't make them wait to finish whatever thing you're trying to do. So yeah, he has issues with with just honestly just giving the people what they want and not getting so stuck in what he wants to convey.
CJ Stewart, Kendall Stewart, Shamari Stewart. This is New Generation Hero Talk. I want to shift gears here, but we're saying somewhat in the same world, or maybe the former world that Daredevil lived in. It appears that Mike Colter, his return as Luke Cage could be inevitable, as the actor revealed recently several times now, that he has had talks with Marvel about returning to the role of Luke Cage. Colter said talks with Marvel remain, quote, ongoing, and tells a direct quote, look, I mean, here's the thing. I've been talking to Marvel, and Jessica Jones is back, and there's a lot of story left to tell, and I think that it'd be a shame for me not to pop back up. When asked what he would want to see in return to the role, Colter said, quote, I definitely would want to see him find out what it's like to have the power and complete control of the neighborhood of Harlem, and see if he can do the right thing and at the same time keep his hands from getting dirty. So this is probably about as strong as we've heard from Mike Colter regarding his return potentially as Luke Cage. Luke Cage, of course, was one of the Netflix series that were canceled along with all the other series when Netflix decided to end its Marvel Studios or Marvel TV division. And with Kristen Ritter returning as Jessica Jones, it has led many to wonder, what about Luke Cage? What about Iron Fist? What about all the other characters that were also introduced in those worlds? So you got Conley Wing. I saw Jessica Henwick had to deny rumors that she was going to be appearing in season 2 of Daredevil. She did confirm she was on the set, that she actually showed up to support Charlie Cox, but that she was not actually in this season. And what does that mean for Misty Knight? There are so many other characters that we could go into. But when it comes to Kendall, Mike Colter, I think he's going to be in this season of Daredevil. It may be at the very end. It may be even just a cameo. But I think if he's willing to say that he's had talks with Marvel, he's even pitching ideas about what he'd want to see. I can't imagine you're doing that while you're still trying to get signed by Marvel. Marvel, I don't think, is the kind of folks where you can apply pressure on them in that way. That also doesn't seem to be how Hollywood works. It's the kind of thing that works in sports, maybe, but not so much in Hollywood. You kind of don't give public comments on stuff when you're negotiating. So I think this deal's already done. He's back. Question comes, is it season 3 or is it season 2? I think probably season 3, he probably has a more prominent role, but I expect he'll be back at least in some kind of cameo. Maybe what we kind of hoped we would have saw at the end of season 1 when, Daredevil was talking about, I need an army, I need friends. And then, it's Cherry and some random cops and a diner owner. And you're like, these are the people you're going to have to fight Wilson Fisk. Like, all right, bro, good luck to you. I think we were hoping to see Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and, Danny Rand show up, right? Like, and that's the kind of arc we expected. I think maybe they may have a redo of a similar scene. And that's when, you see someone like Luke Cage. So that's my theory. What do you think in terms of the future of Mike Colter as Luke Cage now with Marvel Studios?
Yeah, I mean, I've long thought that Luke Cage was in this season. I thought that the weird thing that happened at Comic-Con where they debuted the trailer, but there was no Mike Colter, even though he was in the building. I thought that was a weird situation, which sort of was like, oh, okay. Maybe think like maybe he's not in it. And then these comments continue to push me down that path, and maybe he's not in it because, like you said, I don't know, maybe he wouldn't even be talking at all. But I see the other side of it where, maybe he's saying this, like you said, because he knows he's solidly in it, and now he's just playing coy and just basically lying to the people. I don't understand. The thing that doesn't make sense to me is if he's had conversations with Marvel about coming back, why wouldn't he be in season 2? That would be my question. Why would he be in season 3 potentially and not season 2? And that's the part that I don't think makes sense, which is why I think that that's why I agree. I think he's probably in this season. Again, maybe unless it was a scheduling thing, we couldn't get him in. He does do other shows and whatnot. Impossible. He had schedule conflict.
Yep.
Only creative thing that I can think of outside of that is they don't want him necessarily in Daredevil, and they want him in something else, or they want him to be reintroduced as a package deal with Iron Fist. And
right.
They couldn't get the Iron Fist thing nailed down yet. Those are the only other, options that I'm willing to entertain as possibilities for why he wouldn't be in season 2 if they have had conversations. That's something that Marvel's actively looking at. And so for those reasons, I assume he's in it. But yeah, I'm curious because, Marvel's got to look at they've got to look at obviously their landscape. Obviously, they want Marvel Television to sort of become what the Netflix division kind of was already. And so I wondered, does that mean we get more? Does that mean we get another Luke Cage show? Does that mean we get a Heroes for Hire type show? Like, they're talking about maybe bring back Jessica Jones. We talked about that. Like, and again, there's part of me, the Jessica Jones stuff. I'm like, do we need another season of Jessica Jones? Like, it was good, but like, are we? If like,
I was going to ask you guys about that. 4? Yeah, I want to ask you guys about that. And Shamari, I'll ask you about that as well. So what I actually did last night was I was like, oh, I should probably watch Jessica Jones again before this season comes out. And it's ironic that we then did the show when we started talking so much Daredevil and Netflix era stuff. By the way, first season is still awesome. Like, I watched the first 2 episodes. I'm like, man, this is so freaking good. But like, I decided to watch Jessica Jones again, and it did make me wonder, like, is this something they're going to try to explore again? Is it even necessary? Like, is a question I ask because we know how much the fall off comes after season 1. Do you think that is on the table for Jessica Jones and or Luke Cage, where it's not just about bringing these characters back into whatever world Daredevil is in, but actually bringing them back for their own shows again?
I think it's possible. I honestly think it will depend on this new Josh D'Amaro regime. I think Iger maybe would not have been the biggest fan of that, just because I know he wanted them to consolidate. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what D'Amaro wants. So I think that will remain to be seen. But I would think that Feige wouldn't have an issue. I mean, he's brought the characters back, right? He knows the attraction is there. He knows the fans want to see these characters.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, for me, the natural next step is bring their shows back, which were also successful and popular. So, I think that it is pretty likely, if Mr. D'Amaro doesn't have any objections to that. And I think there's a decent pitch for it as well, because again, the shows were successful. So I think it's pretty likely. And hopefully Luke Cage does show up in this season, because I think that would greatly enhance the quality.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, no.
I was gonna. Who are the other people that you're bringing in if it's not Luke Cage, right? Like, that's my question. Is, like, last season, I mean, like I said, we thought we were seeing like Luke Cage last season. It would have been ridiculous, right? It's like, how are we gonna? How are they feasibly business wise gonna get there while keeping that secret? But
yeah.
Again, they've had a whole year now to be like, all right, let's plan this thing out. We did do the Punisher thing, which was awesome.
Yep.
People love that. Let's go get Jessica Jones if we want to do this thing where we're bringing in other vigilantes. Who are the other vigilantes? Is it just Jessica Jones? Or are they going to bring back, again, Luke Cage would be the next person that comes to mind. They're not going to do Iron Fist before they do Luke Cage. I would be shocked. I mean, one person I kind of thought about, which I think is even more unlikely, but maybe make some story sense, is maybe Kate Bishop. Like, Kate Bishop is obviously, done the Kingpin storyline already, and is also based in New York, but there's not a whole lot of characters that I see that fit the description for, I think they've also talked about the guy, I'm already forgetting his name, Swordsman. They've already done the Swordsman thing already. We may continue to bring him back, but I'm like, who are these vigilantes that the anti-vigilante task force are even taking down?
Yeah, they're not going after Spider-Man. Yeah, who are the people that they need to take down? That's a good point. Yeah, because it's not like there are a ton of...
She's still there, right? Or wherever. I don't know where she is.
Echo, she's not based in New York City, I don't think.
Okay, yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, she's in forgive me. It's like Arizona or something like that. Like, I don't think she's or somewhere like that. I don't think she's anywhere near New York City at this point in time. The whole point was that she left New York City. That was the whole point of her story, and that Fisk had to go basically track her down. So I don't think she's a part of this at all. So yeah, I mean, you have a story about anti-vigilante task force. Is it a one-man mission to stop Daredevil? That's it. They don't care about anybody else. They've already killed White Tiger, so that's not someone they have to worry about too. Maybe is it a nude White Tiger that emerges that they got to deal with? Maybe potentially is it Ayala? Like, I don't know. Those would be
They teased the niece. She seemed kind of young. I was like, I don't know if she's becoming White Tiger in the next year, but these actors and actresses do age faster than we think. It's possible that by the time we get to season 2, she is much older and could look a lot more like Ava Ayala does.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing that I think about, which is what I've said for most of this convo on Colter, is a Luke Cage show viable again? Like, is that something that they can do again? Is that something that they should do again? Because Aisha Shamari makes a good point about, like, I don't know what the new directive is regarding Marvel television. The directive was they had to pare down, not do as many shows, focus more on movies. That was Iger's directive. Now Iger is gone. But Kevin Feige seemed to agree with that directive. It didn't seem like one he was upset about. He seemed to kind of like, and again, I don't know how much of this is him just trying to create excuses for why things didn't work out. But we've heard now plenty of commentary from Feige and people, it seems like close to him, that have said, yeah, like this whole dynamic of what we were asking our people to do was impossible. And that Kevin Feige wasn't getting a good look at all the stories and all the scripts that were happening because he was pulled in too many directions. I mean, you kind of forget, like, Netflix, what made the whole Netflix Marvel dynamic strong in theory, though I think Marvel didn't reach its potential with it because they wouldn't, like, can they say, bring up those kids from NXT to WWE, was that it was something that the TV people got to do, and that was not something that Kevin Feige really was super involved with. And I think it led to, the strength of those shows, because there's no, like, big brother looking over them. It was just Jeff Loeb, overseeing everything. And B, Kevin Feige wasn't wasting time, working on the television stuff. We now know that he's involved with everything that happens on both the television and movie level. So if you're going to do, okay, let's do Luke Cage, let's do a Jessica Jones. Do we run into the same problem we had before where now he's too stretched too thin and the storylines for Luke Cage and Jessica Jones aren't quite as good? That's why. Right. And like, yeah, or is there more trust with Winterbaum that Winterbaum can just run it and he'll actually let him run it and not have Feige overseeing everything? And there's maybe faith in that, because I'll say with what has happened with Wonder Man and what's happened with X-Men 97, like, there's reason to think that Winterbaum knows what he's doing as the head of television for Marvel. So maybe this is a different landscape where there is kind of a true overhead of Marvel television that can allow Kevin to take a step back. But that'd be what I want to know, because if we're going to live in the same world we had last time, where we get these half-baked shows like, Secret Invasion, and then the movies are also, terrible, like, that's not a world we want to go back to, especially a world we're introducing now, whatever reboot that comes post Secret Wars. So that's why I kind of wonder what is the goal of this? Like, that's the thing I keep sticking on. Like, what's the goal of bringing back Jessica Jones? What's the goal of bringing back Mike Colter? Because I don't want these characters, if you're telling me that there is no crossover of these people coming down, like, I don't want these characters just to be Daredevil side characters. Like, these are characters who deserve to be the heads of the leads of their own shows or in something else. Like, again, like Kendall said, are you doing a Heroes for Hire where it's going to be Luke Cage working with Iron Fist? Or is Jessica Jones going to be in something else? Like, do some of these people become Avengers? Like, because Luke Cage's been an Avenger. Like, does Jessica Jones and Luke Cage become a show? Like, where is it them and their kid? Like, there's so many things you can do. What I don't want to happen is say, oh, they're just Daredevil side characters, because it feels like that would be not really using them to their strongest degree.
They've done that. They've done a good job already with Punisher of making sure people understand Punisher is not a Daredevil side.
Right. Now he's in Spider-Man. Yeah, exactly.
Put him in a Spider-Man movie. Give him his own Disney Plus
Spotlight
movie. Like, and part of that is also John Bernthal, who's probably outsized himself as being a side character in a TV series.
Right.
But again, the Punisher is also a character that in and of himself can handle that. Again, I think that's going to be the interesting test for them is, like, do we want Marvel television to just be, let's bring back all the Netflix shows, or do we want them to try new stuff?
There's that too. There's that too. Because again, if you're talking there, it's like a team with open cap space. It's like, all right, if we're gonna sign, if you sign a match player here, match player there, like, All right, that's your roster. What other shows are you developing? Any other shows? Is there anyone else that could get a spinoff potentially? Like, we heard about this Hawkeye show that may or may not still be in pre-production in terms of doing a season 2 eventually, with Kate Bishop taking on the role as Hawkeye. Like, is that something that just thrown down the drain because you're like, well, we're doing now where we continue all the Netflix shows, which is not the worst thing in the world. I love the Netflix shows, but these are, again, important questions that Kendall's asking.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick, I would want them to prioritize that Netflix Defenders universe over the other shows that they were making, if I'm being completely honest. And I enjoyed the other shows. Obviously, they had bangers. I WandaVision obviously was fantastic. Loki, great. Falcon and Winter Soldier, great. Yeah. But these shows, I would think, I think these would build a greater audience and create cooler crossovers for the movies. I think that would also be much more exciting than we did a WandaVision show and this is going to show up in another Avengers movie. And it's like, well, of course she's an Avenger, right? So, but if you make an Avengers universe and they show up in the movies and the shows are like as good or better than they were, then it's like, okay, whoa, right? Now they're doing something really transformative there. So I think that would be a better approach.
Now let me present you with an alternative. It might not be something that can be done next year, but maybe 3 years from now. Would you rather them to produce Defenders related series, or we're about to talk about it, but mutant, X-Men centric Disney Plus series?
Yeah.
Tie in with the X-Men movies as opposed to the Defenders stuff.
I mean, that's where it gets universe is so large. Yeah, it is. And that's where it gets tricky because we're working on this. What are the X-Men in this new world?
Yeah.
Is this an origin story? Which it appears that's where we're going. But who's to really say? When a movie as massive as Secret Wars is coming out, regardless of whatever happens before, you just can't say definitively what direction they're going in. Because, with some of the reporting, we didn't talk about this on this show, and I didn't even get to it on 40 Days Before Night, so I wanted to, but there was reporting that Sadie Sink's character could be mind controlling either the Hulk or some other people. I forgot exactly.
Mind control powers.
She has mind control kind of powers, and I'm like, okay, I think I know who that is, right? And so, they say, well, that would confirm that she would be now the third mutant introduced in the MCU because you have Namor, then you had Kamala Khan, and now this would be the third one being Jean Grey. Which, if you look into that would suggest, okay, this is an origin of the X-Men moving forward because these are the first 3 mutants we've been introduced to in this world. But again, I think that you can't take anything that happens before Secret Wars and say that that's now canon or that's what's going to happen. So now, we're going to get to, and then also the whole thing was, what I did mention was that this is from John Campea show, that the guy from what's the name, Severance, he's going to be playing a character who's going to be the head of damage control that kind of that begins kind of the anti-mutant thing, which I think is super cool. Like I this is one part of this movie I love, and of course it has nothing to do with Spider-Man. But I was like, everything that John Campbell was laying out for that side of it, he was the one that had a story about the Man Spider. The Man Spider stuff of it, I was like, I don't like anything I'm hearing from this side. The damage control that was introduced in Wonder Man, and then Jean Grey stuff, I was like, that stuff sounds really great. I love that. Damage control is after Jean Grey, and this is like the beginnings of this thing, maybe shifting from being just like, just regular superpower people, but particularly maybe towards mutants. Maybe they become something different. Maybe they become a different division. Maybe this is where Sentinels get introduced. Like, again, there's a lot of potential there, especially with how they introduced in Wonder Man, and like some of the plights that they're dealing with, and why this would make sense for them to make this shift. I was like, oh, this is potentially really good storytelling. But So I don't. So that's the question I asked you, because only because, like, to me, if you're doing a show, a X-Men post Secret Wars, where they're already established, you might not need all these X-Men shows. Now, if you're telling me that they're not established and we're just getting introduced to mutants still, then yeah, I think I might need a show about Storm. I might need a show about some of these other people.
What I'll tell you is I believe the X-Men movie, and we'll talk about that, in a minute. I believe the X-Men movie will be an established X-Men movie with the some version of the X-Men 97, X-Men the Animated Series cast, would be my guess. The stuff that's happening with Brand New Day is very strange involving Jean Grey, because again, that would insinuate that maybe Jean Grey is not a part of the X-Men, and that also would insinuate that the mutants have, I guess, been there the whole time, right? I think that's the big question to me: is have the mutants been there the whole time, and they're in this MCU, and we just don't know about them, or the X-Men haven't actually formed yet?
Sure.
Because if that's the case, one, I think that's bad. I think that's bad. That's a bad way to introduce the X-Men, in my opinion. Is just to say, yeah, like, we're just now starting the X-Men now, right? I think that I think what they did with the Fantastic Four, which was obviously an alternate universe, but having a more established Fantastic Four was smart, because now you bring the Fantastic Four into Doomsday, and they're the Fantastic Four, right? There is no rookie Fantastic Four and yada yada. But the when you are doing, what the way they're doing it, and of course, there's also the thought process that maybe, they're doing it where the X-Men, the rumor was that Kang may have wrote out the X-Men from this timeline, the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, so that maybe they don't know who they are. And so maybe the Jean Grey doesn't know she's actually Jean Grey, but she has mind powers. And so that's why it's like, yeah, technically they've always been here, but like it's a different version of Jean Grey. But then something's going to happen in Secret Wars where everything gets reset and the X-Men are now the X-Men officially, and to where we get a more fully fleshed out version. But if we do get the fleshed out version of the X-Men, again, like you said, maybe you don't need as many side projects that are introducing the side characters, but even in that world, there's still so many X-Men side characters that people want to see. And so that's going to be the challenge. Like, obviously, again, it seems like they're trying to make Marvel Television not into what it was, when they first started Disney Plus, where they were doing like movie level stuff. So I don't think we're getting the Wolverine Disney Plus series. I don't think we're getting the, Gambit, Disney Plus series that maybe we would have thought would have been awesome 5 years ago. But it still may be like, we're going to get something on the Brotherhood or something on a certain specific mutant that maybe doesn't justify being in the movies, but still could be a TV character. So yeah, we'll talk about this X-Men movie, but it could go in a million different directions.
It certainly can. Yeah, sorry, what can you say, Champ?
And I don't know. I mean, because kind of you pose a tough question as well. If I would prefer Defenders shows or X-Men related shows, I mean, obviously, in that case, I'd say, maybe have a long meeting with tomorrow and say, listen, we need both. This is what we need. This is what we need. Okay, this satisfies this need.
Marla, we're back to 6 shows a year.
Yeah, Shamari's like, I wish I had that drop from Shannon Sharp. Capital B, capital O, capital F, both.
Yeah.
Both.
But that's it. Like that. But as a fan, that's what I want. Like, I would want both. And I'd say basically forget everything else. Like, you can put Loki and all the other stuff on the back burner, or turn that stuff into movies. But yeah, I'd say, fill that Marvel section of Disney Plus with X-Men stuff and Defender stuff. But if you had to pick one, if for whatever reason he's like, you can only pick one, I mean, I hate to say it depends on how good the X-Men stuff is, because if it's like the quality of the last Fox stuff we got or worse, then obviously I'd say Defenders. Yeah, then I'd say well, give us Defenders, and don't do that. But it kind of depends on what we get.
Let's say both. Let's say both would be really good. Forget about say both would be really good, but you can only choose one.
Yeah.
We've seen the Defender stuff. That kind of goes to that point.
Yeah, it's tough. In that case, I may say prioritize the X-Men, but like you were saying, kind of maybe add the Defenders into other stuff, like put them in the movies, get them involved in other things, maybe give them a movie. Like if Luke Cage is really popular, release a Luke Cage movie. Or
there's also no reason they can't. There's also no reason they can't interact with the X-Men either, right? You know what I mean? The Marvel Universe.
And then they're also doing this special thing with the Punisher. Maybe do that for the Defenders characters.
I think that's coming, by the way. I think there's going to be... Because when I asked what is the end game for this, I actually think that's kind of the end game. I think that it's probably going to be some combination of a Defenders movie that comes out on Disney Plus. And I think that is like where they're going. Maybe could it be a actual movie? It also could be an actual movie. I can see that as well. But I think the end game is because I personally am doubtful that there will be an actual new like Jessica Jones and Luke Cage show. Because like, again, it's not like they're producing that many live action stuff anymore. And I tend to think that whatever the edict Iger put in place is going to stick. So I don't think we're going to be seeing a bunch of shows getting produced. There have been no shows that have been produced pretty much since then, like live action. Like they did Daredevil, and they did Wonder Man was already coming out. And remember, Wonder Man season 2 is also apparently down the pipe too. So like that is far along in terms of maybe being greenlit. So Wonder Man is a part of this conversation too. So you're going to do Daredevil again for another season. You're going to have the Wonder Man season 2. And you're going to do now a third and fourth show that's also kind of just in the corner of New York. That feels unlikely. So it makes me wonder again if they're trying to lend themselves to maybe a really big project that could do, again, maybe a movie, maybe a spotlight. But I think that is actually the direction where they may end up go. We talked a lot about the X-Men. I think it's a good time we should pivot back to the X-Men. There it is. Because a lot of stuff coming out about the X-Men as we wrap up the show that is important to note. So, again, Marvel appears to be all system go when it comes to getting their version of the Children of the Atom to the big screen. According to Film Base UK, there has been, quote, word about a new X-Men movie filming in England sometime later this year. Filming later this year will put them on track to potentially have a movie be ready for 2028. Also, some other details important about the X-Men. We're hearing that Kashra Farahani is set to be the production designer for this movie. Farahani previously worked on Loki and Black Panther in those roles. Of course, we already know Jake Schreier is going to be the director.
Fantastic Four, I think, as well. And
Fantastic Four, yes. We also know that Jake Schreier, of course, he's going to be directing this movie. We've known that for a while. And the other news was that according to My Time to Shine Hello, Jacob Elordi from Frankenstein and Euphoria is reportedly, quote, very high on Marvel's list to join the cast for this X-Men movie. So we're inching there, but we're getting closer and closer to getting tangible things about the X-Men. There's still a little bit of ways away, but beginning first, Sham, with the idea that X-Men could be filming as soon as this year. You've been the person that's been on this show, pretty much kicking Marvel's back in any chance you got for being like, where the hell are the X-Men? Like, what is going on? Why are we waiting so long for the X-Men? It seems like this could be finally the year where they actually do shoot stuff for the X-Men. Is it better late than never, Sham?
I mean, it's definitely better late than never, but they're very late. They're so late. It's crazy. Like, and it maybe too late. I mean, we have to see how good these Avengers movies are. We still have to see that. If these Avengers movies are like bad, I mean, I don't know. People might be like, I don't want to see anything from this. I mean, it's crazy that they would wait this long for this property. It's just, but I'm not even going to go into that whole, I've ranted enough over the past however many years on that. But it's good. It's honestly great news that they're finally going to start making this movie. I'm glad that, and like you said, if they start now, I mean, we should be getting it, imminently within the next few years. They have good people working on it. At the helm of directing and production design and such. And we're starting to see cast people. We're seeing Sadie Sink is likely playing some kind of mutant. Jacob Elordi. What?
Yeah, that's your guy, man, for Euphoria.
Yeah, man. Kendall, I've been touting him for years. I've been like, where's the Marvel? Where's the MCU? This guy.
What about? I've not seen Jacoby Elordi do anything. So can you give me a scatter report on what I should be seeing here? As I spelled his name wrong, so sorry, Jacob. Can you give me a scatter report on what I should be looking for? I saw he's 6'5", which is quite massive, even for an actor, and which is why he played Frankenstein.
Yeah, big guy. Yeah, he's a big guy. Euphoria plays like high school quarterback. Which obviously very much Cyclops. Maybe Avalanche Brotherhood energy, just like very. He definitely has like a presence, kind of a leader type of presence. So I mean, he's someone that's kind of, for me, is like a natural and just has a young look to like how he looks. So it's like just perfect fit for like a young X-Men.
He's young, but like he's big enough that like he doesn't look like he's a kid, right? He doesn't look like, all right, this is like some like 15-year-old kid. Like he could go up against Steve Rogers if he had to, because he's obviously big. Like he kind of has a Superman kind of build and look to him. He's a little stoic from what I've seen. Like he's a little kind of like, which is why the Frankenstein thing I think made sense. Like I wouldn't say robotic, but like he doesn't seem like he's like the most like expressive actor from what I've seen. But I'm curious, what character in the X-Men, like I don't think he's Gambit. It could be Cyclops, like you mentioned. I think the big question is like, if he's high on the list, he can play 4 or 5 different characters probably. Does that mean he's in line to play Cyclops potentially, or that's the role that you would think he would probably want? If
you're beginning your casting for this movie, you would assume that it begins with someone massive. So this is a Jacob Elordi. That is not the greatest picture in terms of the resolution, but that is who. I don't know why my resolution looks so bad, but that is who we're talking about here. I'll see if I can get a better picture of him. But you would think that you're talking about somebody who's going to be playing a huge role, and not to dismiss. I mean, I can't. I'm the last guy to dismiss Gambit. I literally just put a picture of Gambit next to my bed, just yesterday. That's what I spent most of my day doing yesterday, decorating my my office space and my bedroom space. But I would assume, someone who's going to be super high priority at this point in time is going to be someone like Cyclops, especially if you've already cast Jean Grey. We think, again, who's to say for sure, but we think Jean Grey has been cast. So I don't know if you're saying, the next thing we got to do is we need to cast, Gambit. I don't know. There's a better picture there of Mr. Jacob Elordi in a much better resolution. But he's the man we're talking about. He's the man that apparently is being considered to potentially join this movie in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, Cyclops, I think the question with Cyclops is going to be like, has he already been casted? Because I agree. I think that's the first thing they've got to get squared away. I thought there was a really interesting anecdote that only added to the Jean Grey, Sadie Sink smoke that was, I forgot who, but there was a film insider that was being interviewed with Barstool. He did an interview with Barstool, and they asked him, and he gave an anecdote about how Kevin Feige, they were talking about Secret Wars and how he was solely focused on Secret Wars and Doomsday, and he's not being stretched in this last phase of movies, or this next phase of movies that they've got coming out, and that the only thing that took him off of working on Secret Wars and Doomsday was Brand New Day and casting Sadie Sink for Brand New Day specifically.
Yeah.
Which made you think like, okay, well, if that's the only, why is casting for Sadie Sink for Brand New Day the only thing that was important enough to bring him off the set of Doomsday and Secret Wars and the planning of that movie. Or it was getting ready for X-Men, right? Those are the only things that got him off. Or getting the X-Men movie, picking out Jake Schreier, and then casting Sadie Sink for Doomsday. Makes you think that she's playing Jean Grey. But along that process, they've got to also have an idea of who's playing Cyclops. I think the even more fascinating thing, because I think the Cyclops thing, I don't think it's going to be that hard to cast Cyclops. I'll be honest. I thought Ty Sheridan was good. I thought James Marsden was awesome. There's so many actors. Like a lot of people want Patrick Schwarzenegger to play Cyclops as well. Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. He could certainly do the job. There's plenty of people that can. I think the more difficult thing is going to be Professor X and Magneto, if Magneto's in the movie, but particularly Professor X. I have long, at this point, I've staked my claim that they should just bring back James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, albeit that's unlikely. And assuming that's not going to happen, that is going to be their biggest undertaking and their most important undertaking for this X-Men movie.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that this is something that they're? You want to talk about priorities on the casting? It doesn't sound. I don't think anybody thinks that Jacob Elordi, his 6'5" self, is going to be getting in a wheelchair. So I don't think that he's in line to play Professor X or Magneto. So it is surprising me that actually hasn't been the foundational castings.
We've heard nothing about that.
Zero.
I mean, there's been a little bit about some people say, is Coleman Domingo playing Professor X? Is that more a fan casting thing, or is this like? But
and we've heard, of course, we've heard this stuff with Giancarlo Esposito, who seems to be kind of put it out himself more than any.
He's like, I'd love to do it, and and then they bring him in as Sidewinder and.
Right.
The Falcon movie, Captain America Brave the World. And so I guess he's not Professor X.
Yeah.
And then, Denzel was like, maybe, Denzel's Magneto. And he's like, I'm in Black Panther.
Black Panther 3.
So
yeah.
I guess I'm not Magneto. So I don't really know. That's, again, I don't want to give myself too much hope that maybe they are doing the McAvoy.
I wonder it. It makes me wonder. Like you saying that and then me thinking like, why are they acting like Professor X and Magneto aren't at least one of the most important castings, let alone the most important? Like we've heard about all these other characters they're trying to cast. Who the hell is Professor X? It's called the X-Men.
You're right. It's a crucial question, and we've heard is obviously we've heard old Patrick Stewart and.
Right, we keep hearing about Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. I'm like, I love those guys, and I'm happy to see them in this next movie. What's coming up after that? I need to know what's coming up after that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I kind of, and I'm with you in terms of McAvoy and Fassbender. I would be very pleased if they just brought back McAvoy and Fassbender. Unfortunately, I just have a feeling in my gut. I don't have any evidence of this, but I have a feeling in my gut and just a sense of how it's been discussed in that they're treating this like a kind of like how the Disney regime treated literally anything relating to the Star Wars prequels when they bought Disney. Is that just anything even closely related to any of that? So I feel like there's a similar line of anything even closely related to anything Fox X-Men is just not. We're not
Especially
doing any of that.
Yeah, the McAvoy and Fassbender years particularly.
Yeah, the McAvoy Fassbender. We're not doing any of that. All that is just it did not happen at all. Which I think is a shame. I don't think that's the smart approach. McAvoy and Fassbender were great. They were fantastic. They received nothing but praise in
all four movies.
Yeah, for every single movie.
And First Class and Days of Future Past are classics.
Classics.
Yeah. Easy classics.
And they set the bar
around the performances.
Yeah.
And they set the bar so high. That's another thing, is that they set the bar extremely high. I doubt whoever they get is gonna exceed that bar in terms of like the new Professor X and Magneto that they get. That's a hard. McAvoy and Fassbender set the bar extremely high. I don't know if they're gonna be able to compete. Like it's very likely it's gonna be some lesser version and we're gonna be like, yeah, we gotta focus on Elordi and the other people in the X-Men because it's Professor X and Magneto. I mean, they cool, but like, it's not the same as what we got from Days of Future Past.
I don't. Their big thing is going to be we don't want to confuse people, right? That's a natural concern. Is like, look, it's basically be first class if you have McAvoy and Fassbender and then a bunch of young X-Men.
Right.
You're gonna be like, this is the X-Men Apocalypse, rather, or first class, whichever one you want to pick. But I think people are savvy enough in 2026, 2028, by the time this movie comes out, that I think people will understand that it's a different universe. Again, maybe not, because again, the Daredevil stuff got weird, in part because they didn't really explain it much. We were like, is this the same Kingpin, like in Hawkeye? Is this the same Matt Murdock? He acted a little different, Murdock and She-Hulk. Is this Murdock from Netflix, or is this a different guy? He got a different costume. So I don't know if, they want that sort of, those comparisons like you mentioned, but I think this would be the hardest undertaking for them in terms of surpassing the previous versions, right? Fantastic Four, I don't think it was much of a hard undertaking. The Johnny Storm character was going to be tough with Joseph Quinn, and I think he did a good job of holding his own next to Chris Evans and Michael B. Jordan. The rest of them, I don't hate the other versions of Fantastic, but it wasn't a hard bar to meet. In the case of Spider-Man, obviously Tobey Maguire's movies are awesome, and Andrew Garfield has plenty of fans, but the Andrew Garfield movies left a lot of bad taste in the mouth of fans. And neither one of those movies, there were a lot of things that people felt weren't Spider-Man. They were very 2000 superhero movie, and they weren't Spider-Man. And so that allowed Feige to come and say, we can do something different here. With Professor X and Magneto, I don't think there's anything that's been left on the... Maybe don't make Professor X British. Like, I think that's not the only thing that
last thing. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's, there's specific stories, but in terms of a way you're portraying these characters, like, you can make Professor X a little slimier, you could do some things with Magneto and put him in different spots, but those are all things James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender can do. You don't have to bring in a new actor to say, we got to do a different take on this. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. I think that's their biggest question right now, but it's that, and then also obviously what's going to happen with Wolverine. Right?
It's another big question, because it sounds like Hugh Jackman may still be around post Secret Wars. For what is it like having a Hugh Jackman still around, but everyone else is new? Like, is there a Jean Grey thing? Like, that'd be kind of weird. I feel no way they're doing that. Which is I'll be honest, like that's a part of Wolverine. To not have that be a part of any of this dynamic, if he indeed does cross over with the X-Men, would be weird. It'd be weird to do it because he's a 60-year-old man, and Sadie Sink is in her early 20s. But it'd be weird that that's not a part of this story.
Yeah, and just to, I know I said I stopped complaining, but I gotta complain a little more because this wouldn't even be a thing, or they would have an opportunity to reset right now if they messed any of this stuff up already, right? Like if we already got the X-Men. And then, they're doing Secret Wars, and it's like, all right, well, you can soft reset if your X-Men stink, or if there's some kind of, I don't know, whatever issues they're running with, they can kind of, let's kind of reshape things, let's see what we can do. But instead, they waited, however many years, and they dragged. I mean,
it would be 10 years if they don't. They made this movie comes out in 2028 because that deal was signed in, I believe, in 2018. I think so. I think it would be 10 years, right?
Yeah. I believe it would be 10 years.
And what was the word we kept hearing was that maybe there's some 10-year kind of like moratorium that we don't know about, that where they can't bring in new characters, and it does make you wonder if that was anything to do with this.
I always tell people, if you want to have a funny laugh, go back into the archives of New Generation Podcast Network and Hero Talk and listen to our Hero Talk when must have been 3 months after that deal was signed, and Kevin Feige was like, yeah, we're taking our time with the X-Men. Yeah, we'll get there maybe in 5-10 years or something. And again, it's the funniest thing when you go back and watch it or listen to it because again, none of us believed it. And our thought process of what a long time was like, man, like if this thing's not out by 2023, like wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I remember that.
At the latest.
And I went back and listened, and I felt so vindicated because I'm just like, none of it. We were all like, no, and since then, I've been very consistent. Of okay, we talk about what's Marvel's next move, and I'm like X-Men, like they have the X-Men now. They bought the X-Men.
Yeah.
So the X-Men has to be their next move. Like, why would they not do the X-Men? Like, then they started releasing all the mid content, and we're like, why are they even working on this? Where's the X-Men? And then when Iger got upset, I'm like, good. Iger's paying attention. He's like, yo, stop with all this other stuff you're doing. Like, what are you doing? You've had this property for a decade now, for damn near a decade. Like, do something with them. You're gonna do something with them, or I'm gonna do something with you. Like, they had to have that conversation. So, like, it's crazy.
We were operating under the Spider-Man timeline, right? Like, they bought, the rights to Spider-Man from Sony.
Yeah.
They didn't buy the rights, but they got the rights from Spider-Man, and they worked the deal out, and they immediately threw him in Civil War.
Right, he was in there immediately.
Greenlit a Spider-Man movie for the next year. Like, they were moving rapid. So we thought, like, all right, they say they're going to take a little while, maybe 3-4 years. Like, that's kind of longer than we hoped before we started. But we thought, like, look, we might get Wolverine and Black Widow. I mean, like, crazy stuff to think about now. Yeah. And, I mean, again, they weren't lying. They said 10 years. It's been 10 years.
Yeah. The deal was announced in 2017. It was completed in 2019. So, yeah, that put us 2018 would be 2028. So that would be 10 years in the ballpark of 10 years, where if you want to say the deal was completed, then early 2019, that was March. But when it was announced, it was 2017, end of 2017, which would be leading us right in 2018. That was December. So it's right there. What I think is going to happen, Sham, is I think that as soon as they start like announcing these castings, Kevin Feige is going to come out with a definitive statement and say, we were not allowed to do an X-Men movie until X, Y, and Z. Because otherwise, it does not make. I think we're going to learn that. I think we're going to learn it because otherwise, none of this makes any sense. It does not make any sense that we've gone this long with what I think is the property that has the highest earning potential for Marvel completely on the shelf. Because it's because they don't own Sony, they don't own Spider-Man solely, so you can't say Spider-Man. And the Avengers are the Avengers, but like this would be the new thing. This would be the next big thing that they'd be launching. To not have to just leave that on the shelf when the money that can be made for it, when you're going to do new castings, which means you could probably get a bunch of actors on the cheap. And it doesn't make financial sense to wait this long.
It'd also be almost 10 years from when Dark Phoenix was done. It came out.
Right.
So might be some sort of deal where they had a 7-8 year thing of
you can't do X-Men. Can't make another X-Men movie. Yeah.
Not with new characters unless it's unless you wait.
My question, which is what we've said a bunch on the show, and I've said it a bunch, so I'm gonna say it again here, is my question is it's silly to me that they would not just tell us that. That to me is silly.
Yeah, unless they're the only thing I can think of, something our dad says a lot, is maybe there's some sort of NDA, right? So there's some sort of, they're just not allowed to say it. There's something in the contract that says you're not allowed to, disparage Fox, in all. Or,
but to me, like that wouldn't. But it's not disparaging to say we're not allowed to make a movie based on a contract.
I don't think so either. Yeah, I don't think so.
It's not disparaging.
Like James Gunn did as good of a job as he could of being like, look, there's contractual reasons why we can't do Static Shock.
Yeah,
or Static. Figure it out. Read between the lines. You don't want me to go into detail.
Right.
On the contract.
Yeah, and I mean, it would make sense, EJ, if we did get that because, and I think I've said this before too. I've said just about everything on this topic, but like I feel like it's a fireable offense. Like I said, I feel like Iger had to have that conversation of like, I need to talk to you about what's going on because Marvel is releasing mid content. We are not making nearly as much money as we should. And when it comes to this Fox deal, which was a massive deal,
for
Disney, the X-Men was a big part of what made that deal so massive. And so much of the buzz and excitement around the MCU since that deal happened was, oh, we might get the X-Men. When are we going to get the X-Men? And then and like you said, the amount of money they're losing by not using these characters, all the suits at the top care about is the bottom line. They want to see the line going up. When the line isn't shooting up, when we give you more resources that we know is going to bring people in. We know that you put X-Men on the title, MCU, Marvel Studios, people are going to fill the theater.
This next movie
are filling the theater.
This next movie has $1 billion potential.
Definitely.
$1 billion, easily.
Yeah.
Easily $1 billion potential.
And what's the last $1 billion movie they've done? It's been a little while now.
I want to say Spider-Man got there. But
No Way Home.
That's Sony, obviously. Yeah, it's No Way Home. But yeah, I think that's what it was.
It's a while ago.
I mean, Fantastic Four didn't get close.
Yeah.
Doomsday, I think will certainly get there. But before that, I think you're talking about Endgame. The last question I have for you guys on this X-Men thing. This movie's coming out. We think in 2028. Jake Schreier directing it. Right now, where we sit today, we don't really know much about it. What do we think, from a very broad standpoint, this movie actually is? We talked about it. It's a new.
I mean, the rumor has been this is a Mr. Sinister led villain story. I hate to be the guy that I have no idea. But without knowing, we don't know anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
They've done a tremendous job of keeping the thing airtight.
Yeah, and that's why everything you hear about it is so confusing, because I think most people lean to this being an origin story, which to me is like, does Mr. Sinister make sense for an origin story?
Right.
Shouldn't the origin story has to be a Magneto story, right? What else?
Yeah, Magneto Brotherhood, something along those lines.
Brotherhood of Mutants, yeah, which is led by Magneto.
Connected to Magneto, yeah. Even if he's not.
Right. Is it? Yeah. Right. Yeah. If you want to do X-Men Evolution style, where he's kind of in the background, fine. But like a Brotherhood of Mutants versus X-Men movie feels like that would have to be the first story, which is why when they did X-Men First Class and X-Men, the first movie, it was a Magneto-led movie in both of those movies, because it just seems like that is the obvious place to go. And then Mr. Sinister, it feels like he'd be someone that will make more sense for when the X-Men are more established. Like he's actually seen Jean Grey and Scott's work and like, like those. Let me get their DNA. Like you just started out of nowhere. And also here's this guy that was born in the 1400s and he's always been interested potentially in mutants. I don't know. It doesn't seem to make all the most sense to me. But that would be my biggest thing, would be simply that. But I tend to think maybe this is kind of the beginnings maybe of kind of what you saw maybe in like the first episode of X-Men the Animated Series. Or maybe this is like a Sentinels government thing versus the X-Men, as much as it is about X-Men versus other mutants. Like maybe it is.
They haven't really done that.
Maybe it's bringing in someone, like we talked about who this team should be. Like maybe it's someone like a Kitty Pryde, or maybe it actually is Jubilee. Like I don't know, somebody on the run who like they're trying to bring into the culture that they're trying to establish with the X-Men. And maybe that's the first story you're introducing, is like, here's this team, here's these young people who are trying to protect other mutants with the help of this young, brilliant billionaire doctor / professor, and is the government, as the government is revving up its efforts to close these guys down, shut them down. That I think would be maybe probably something along the lines of where the story would go. Maybe keep the focus not so much on the villain, but make it so much more on the X-Men as a team, which is kind of like what you saw with Fantastic Four.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it was kind of also what Schreier did with Thunderbolts.
Yeah,
where they had Sentry and they had Val. It wasn't really a traditional true villain in that film. It was very much on.
It was more about themselves. Yeah, it was more the war that each of them had with themselves than really anything else.
Right. And again, I think the government thing is a good idea because, again, that's something they haven't really done. Like they did the Days of Future Past thing with the Sentinels. And I maintain, I love that movie. You watched it recently. It's a great movie. I don't love the Sentinel. I don't love the way they did the Sentinels in that movie. And it's the crux of how they. It's a period piece. It's in the 70s. You couldn't have the Sentinels be like these like super android, super robot, things in the 70s. They had to be like the prototype version. And then you have the Sentinels from 2045 who are just like aliens, basically. Yeah, right. And it's like, and I'm like, this isn't my version of what I think of the Sentinels typically. And so, like, again, if they could do something that's more traditional about the Sentinels, where they're actually like, they're functional robots that aren't like, skeletons of what they are, and are also not sentient, android robot, things like
killing machines, yeah.
Right, exactly. Like there's a happy medium that they didn't really find in that movie because they didn't really want to. In this, they could do that, and again, the government could play a bigger role in that. You have some sort of hound watchdog guy that's going down hunting mutants. That could be a storyline that they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something with the Sentinels. That would definitely be a welcome, kind of a welcome like introduction to the X-Men. I mean, we have seen quite a bit with the X-Men. I mean, we've seen the X-Men in general, and obviously with the first trilogy, the central theme being them, being hunted, being ostracized, kind of throughout the entire trilogy. We've seen, we've had the whole mutant cure thing. I mean, there'll be a lot of. The X-Men has so many stories, so there's a lot of ground for them to cover. We may get, which is one thing that we haven't gotten. I don't think we'll get it with this movie, but we may get some stuff maybe with space and the Shi'ar Empire, possibly at some point.
Yes,
because now we have so many cosmic characters.
Especially if they keep focusing on Jean Grey. I mean, it's about the only place you can go with the Phoenix thing at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I think that's something that I think that's fertile ground for them. I think that's something that I think would be really cool to see at some point.
I mean, it sounds sacrilegious. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Part of me kind of just wonders what they're going to do with the Phoenix thing. I don't want to. What I was going to say was that sounds sacrilegious, but I was like, I almost wish there was a way they could skip it. I don't know if it's possible. I just don't know if it's possible. But to do that story for a third time, the last one came out. I know very few people actually saw it, but it came out not that long ago. Because the whole thing about the Phoenix saga, which makes it such an iconic story, is that like it's not just like a one comic book thing. It's like there's a progression that gets you to that point and then gets you out of whatever Jean comes beyond that. That you can't like for all the things that like the Fox movies did that were like very like anti the comic books, like they actually handled that extremely well. Like the first time around, it was like introduced this a little bit in the second movie. Now the execution in the third movie was bad, but then have it be that full tilt moment in the third movie, like in the rumors you're hearing about what may happen with the Batman, where Harvey Dent gets introduced in the Batman 2, and then maybe the Batman 3, he's actually Harvey Dent, and he's actually Two-Face. Like if done correctly, like this would probably be like a 2-movie deal. Like that's kind of how it should go. But I'm just like, I can't. We've already talked about how many years we've waited to get this new movie. Like I can't do another 2 movies where I'm worried about Jean and her instability with the Phoenix Force. Like I can't do it again.
Yeah, there was a great debate that happened on the Midnight Boys podcast with Dan Lathan on the Ringer. This was a while back. It might have been like 5 months ago, before we had all the Sadie Sink, Jean Grey stuff. They were debating like who should be on the X-Men team, and Van Lathan made the case that he thought Jean Grey is like the most important X-Men character, and that she's like the first person you gotta have. Which again, I guess Kevin Feige agreed, because that's the direction seemingly that they've gone. And
is that excluding Professor X?
I don't want her in the movie.
Is that excluding Professor X?
I think he meant including Professor.
Well, you can't have the X-Men without Professor X.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but yeah, there were people that didn't want Jean Grey in the movie at all, and you know, I understand that sentiment as well. I certainly don't want Jean Grey to be as central a figure as she's been in the last two versions of the X-Men.
But again, I'm starting to now wonder, is that possible? Again, I keep bringing myself back to that same question because I don't think that I think most X-Men fans kind of agree with all this, which is very odd because we're all X-Men fans. But I think we also realize that to tell this story, I just don't know. I mean, Jean is let's keep it a buck. Jean and Scott are the main characters of the X-Men. They are.
And that is her.
Anyone else that's
story.
Jean, Scott, and Logan. Everyone else, they are supporting characters. Now, some of them may have more importance than others, like Storm, like Kitty Pryde, like Beast, Rogue, but they don't get the same. I would love for someone to just do how many panels has been dedicated to every character of the X-Men. I would be stunned if we take out Professor X. I'd be stunned. That's who? I know, right? I'd be stunned if Scott and Jean weren't 1 and 2. Stunned. And Wolverine. That would be the top 3. So to me, it's like, I don't mean like some people are like, oh, you're casual to say that. I don't think actually it's a casual take at all. I think that if I said, how many panels have been dedicated to the characters? If Jean, Scott, and Logan aren't 1, 2, and 3, I would be stunned. If you want to convince me, maybe Storm fits in there and she boxes out one of them, maybe. But that'd be the only other person I would even think about that would get in that game. So if that's again what we're talking about, and some of that has to do with the fact that like Jean's just been dead for like at times years and years and years, and then she would come back. So she's probably the character that's been most dead amongst them. So that'd be the only reason why maybe she wouldn't be number 1. But I just don't know if you can do we're going to do an X-Men movie, but like the center character is going to be Kitty. I literally kept begging them to do that when they were doing Days of Future Past because that story is a Kitty Pryde story and they would not do it. So that was them even taking a story that is inspired by Kitty/Kate Pryde being the lead character of telling a story. They said, nope, it's got to be Wolverine. Why? Because of reasons. Movie, money, everything. So, like, whether it's having Jean not in it or even simply saying, hey, could Jean take a more back seat? If she takes a back seat, it impacts so many other people. It impacts Scott's role. It impacts potentially Wolverine's role. And it could also impact Charles's role, because Charles's role as this being his kind of Jean's like Jean and Scott are both his number 1 and 2 proteges, and really 1 and 1A, and he has a special bond with Jean because they are both telepaths. So like it also even limits like the like fatherly type role he takes with the team by saying that Jean's on the sidelines. So it impacts other people so much. I don't know. That's why the long answer. I don't know if this is possible.
I mean, I know that. I'll be honest. I would like to see the MCU tackle the Phoenix Saga.
Wow.
And I'm saying that just in the sense of, and look, I'll be honest. I'll be vain. The MCU, they be having some fire suits. I want to see an MCU actual Jean Grey suit, like Jean Grey costume, like actual Jean Grey costume, and an MCU Phoenix costume. Oh my god, the cosplays that will come out of that. I mean, their designer's going to be working triple time to make sure that is as shining, as looks as amazing.
Did an excellent job with Scarlet Witch.
I was thinking.
That was my second point.
I was going to say, Sham, real quick. I was going to say, like, the year Marvel Studios does a Dark Phoenix/Phoenix Saga with the actual Phoenix costume, the cosplay at Comic-Con of Jeans playing both Dark and regular Phoenix would be platinum.
Yeah,
triple platinum.
You would probably fill a whole like room. You can fill the main stage with all the Jeans that we'll see. After that. So yeah, I want to see that. But then also, seeing how they handled the Scarlet Witch and her kind of like psychic breakdown over this span of WandaVision, I kind of do. I'll be honest, I kind of trust them with this Phoenix seeing this Phoenix transition over time, and it wouldn't be exactly the same, obviously, but like just seeing how they handled that, I'd be like, yeah, I kind of want to see you guys see what you do with this, because we have not seen it handled quite that. We haven't seen them handle it quite that well, and I think it deserves that level of like of care. And I could see Phoenix being told in the X-Men being like how people were excited about WandaVision after that. I can see that times like 20 if they do Phoenix like right, if they really do like her Jean's like mental deterioration and then eventual like return to the light. If they do that like arc right, oh my god, they could be again. They could have the X-Men Teflon and they'll be printing money, and people will be like, "Why didn't they do this already?"
One day we gotta sit down. We gotta rank what stories do you want to see told in the next. Like we gotta do a draft.
There's so much X-Men There's so much X-Men content that we've got to produce.
I know we gotta do a draft of like what stories do you want to see told the most? Because I'm curious, where does Weapon X stand? Where does Dark Phoenix stand? Where does is Days of Future Past, is that even a thing? Do you care to see that again? Do you care to see like done like maybe more accurately to the comics? Do you care to see an Age of Apocalypse? Not like that terrible ass movie, but an actual movie. Do you want to see Onslaught? Do you want to see? There's
Jonathan Hickman, Krakoa.
Yeah, Krakoa. There's Utopia. There's AVX. Did I say AVX? I don't know if I said AVX. Like, yeah. I would be curious. What other X-Men stories you want to be told, and what is the order of that? Like, what would be our draft? We should do that. Maybe that's an assignment for next week. We do like a X-Men story draft where we each get 3 picks. And we have to make your own big board, and then we figure out something. Because I would be curious in terms of like because kind of pushing out what the story you want to see is like, it's a good question to ask because there's so many they can do, but there are a few that are so foundational that it almost feels like, how do you move forward with these other stories if you don't tell those stories, right? In a weird way. So that makes it interesting, man. Well, again, it's like every show we do, when you get to the X-Men conversation, it just reaches a new level. It's just because of how important these characters are, how important they are to Marvel, which it makes this next stretch they're going in, where they're going to be introducing mutants, man. It's going to be really, really important. But I think that's a good place to leave it today, man. I want to thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this edition of New Generation Hero Talk. Of course, you can catch all of our shows, including New Generation Hero Talk, Imperial Broadcast, Sports Talk, 40 Days and 40 Nights, and Off Script, all on our podcast channel. Just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Also be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, New Generation Media, where we stream live 40 Days and 40 Nights, along with posting episodes of New Generation Hero Talk. Make sure you follow me on X, EJ_Stewart, Action EJ on Instagram, Kendall on X, New Gen Ken, Shamari on Instagram, MC Channel 22, and also as well on Snapchat. See you later.